The exploration vessel Phoenix drifted through the void of space toward the distant planet, Kepler 442b. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching the brown and gray world grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked dead and empty, but the long-range sensors had detected something unusual buried beneath its surface. Jake had been exploring the outer rim territories for 12 years now, and he knew when something was worth investigating. The energy readings from this planet were unlike anything he had seen before. They pulsed in strange patterns that seemed almost like a heartbeat coming from deep underground. Dr. Lisa Carter worked at her station analyzing the sensor data. She was the best xenarchaeologist in the human fleet and had discovered artifacts from dozens of extinct alien civilizations. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panels as she tried to make sense of the readings. "Captain, the energy signature is definitely artificial," Lisa said without looking up from her screens. "Whatever is down there was built by intelligent beings. The power source is still active after what looks like thousands of years." Jake nodded and turned to his navigation officer. "Commander Ryan Blake, take us into orbit and prepare a landing party. I want to know what we are dealing with before we go down there." Ryan was a cautious man who had served with Jake for 8 years. He understood the dangers of exploring unknown worlds, but he also knew that humanity needed to expand and learn about the galaxy around them. The human race had only been traveling between stars for 2 centuries, and there was still so much they did not understand. The Phoenix settled into a stable orbit around Kepler 442b, and the crew began preparing for the surface mission. Jake selected a small team including Lisa and Ryan, plus 4 security specialists. They loaded their shuttle with excavation equipment and scientific instruments, then launched toward the planet's surface. The shuttle landed near the source of the energy readings in what appeared to be an ancient crater. The air was thin but breathable, and the gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal. Jake led the team toward a series of strange, geometric shapes that jutted up from the ground like the tips of buried pyramids. Lisa ran her scanners over the structures, and her eyes widened with excitement. "These are not natural formations, Captain. The material is some kind of crystalline metal that I have never seen before. The entire complex extends deep underground for at least 2 kilometers. They found an entrance hidden beneath centuries of accumulated dust and debris. The opening led to a tunnel that sloped downward into darkness. Emergency lights activated automatically as they entered, illuminating smooth walls covered with intricate symbols and patterns. Felt a strange sensation as they walked deeper into the complex. The air seemed to hum with energy, and the walls themselves appeared to glow with a faint blue light. They followed the main corridor for nearly an hour before reaching a vast chamber filled with towering machines and displays. "My God," Lisa whispered as she stared at the alien technology surrounding them. "This is incredible, Jake. This civilization was far more advanced than anything we have encountered before." The chamber was filled with crystalline pillars that reached from floor to ceiling. Each pillar pulsed with the same rhythmic energy they had detected from orbit. At the center of the room stood a raised platform with what appeared to be a control console covered in glowing symbols. Ryan approached one of the pillars cautiously with his scanner running. "The energy readings are off the charts, Captain." "Whatever. These things they are still fully operational. I am reading massive data storage capacity in each pillar." Lisa moved to the central console and began studying the symbols carved into its surface. Many of them were similar to patterns she had seen in other ancient ruins, but these were far more complex and sophisticated. She pulled out her translation device and began running the symbols through the database. "I think this might be some kind of archive or library," she said as she worked. "These symbols appear to be a written language, but it is unlike anything in our records. The complexity suggests a highly advanced civilization." Jake watched as Lisa connected her equipment to the alien console. He had learned to trust her instincts when it came to ancient technology, but he still felt nervous about interfacing with unknown systems. They had no idea what kind of security measures or automated defenses might be built into the complex. The console responded to Lisa's touch, and the entire chamber suddenly came alive with light and sound. The crystalline pillars began pulsing faster, and holographic displays appeared in the air around them. Images of strange alien beings flickered in and out of existence, showing what appeared to be the builders of this place. The translation matrix is starting to work, Lisa said excitedly. I am getting partial text translations. This appears to be some kind of warning system or alert mechanism. The holographic displays began showing images of space with star systems marked in different colors. Some systems pulsed with green light, while others flashed red. In the background, Jake could hear what sounded like alien voices speaking in urgent tones. Lisa worked frantically to decode more of the message. Captain, I think this is a warning about something called the Void Swarm. The translation is still rough, but it seems to describe some kind of parasitic entities that consume entire star systems. Ryan moved closer to study the star charts. These red systems appear to be ones that have been destroyed or consumed. Look at the pattern, Jake. It shows a wave of destruction moving across the galaxy in a specific direction. The holographic display zoomed in to show creatures that looked like living ships the size of small moons. They moved through space, consuming planets and converting the matter into more of themselves. The images were terrifying in their clarity and detail. The beings who built this place called themselves the Architects, Lisa continued translating. They left this warning for future civilizations. According to this data, the Void Swarm follows a 50,000-year cycle. They emerge from dark space between galaxies and consume everything in their path before returning to hibernation. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he realized what they had discovered. When is the next emergence, Lisa? How much time do we have? Lisa's face went pale as she read the translated text. According to the architect calculations, the Void Swarm is due to return within the next 10 years, maybe less. The weight of this discovery hit the entire team at once. They had stumbled upon evidence of an existential threat to all life in the galaxy. Jake knew they had to get this information back to Earth as quickly as possible. Download everything you can, Lisa. We need to take this data to Solar Defense Command immediately, Jake ordered. Ryan, prepare the shuttle for immediate departure. We are leaving this planet now. As the team worked to copy the Architect database, Jake stared at the holographic images of the Void Swarm. Humanity had barely begun to explore the galaxy, and now they faced a threat that had destroyed countless civilizations before them. He wondered if anyone would believe what they had found, or if the galaxy was doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past. The massive council chamber on Centralis Prime buzzed with alien voices speaking in dozens of different languages. Ambassador Helen Cross stood at the center of the circular room, holding a data tablet containing humanity's most important discovery. Around her sat the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy, representing species that had ruled space for millions of years. Helen had served as Earth's representative to the Galactic Empire for 5 years, but she still felt small in this enormous chamber. The architecture was designed to intimidate, with soaring crystal pillars and floating platforms that defied gravity. Each council member sat on an elevated throne that towered above the speaking floor, where humans and other younger species were forced to present their cases. Chancellor Zeth Kalar of the Dominion race called the session to order with a gesture of his 4 arms. His species had controlled the empire for over 2 million years, and his ancient eyes showed the weariness of eons. He looked down at Helen with the same expression he might give to a child trying to interrupt adult conversation. The human delegation has requested emergency session time to present what they claim is urgent information regarding galactic security, Zeth Kalar announced in a voice that echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Cross, you have 15 minutes to state your case. Helen activated her holographic projector, and the images from the Architect Archive filled the air above her. The council members leaned forward slightly as they saw the star charts and data that Jake Morrison's team had discovered on Kepler 442b. She began speaking in the clearest voice she could manage despite her nervousness. Honored counselors, we have discovered evidence of an ancient threat that will emerge within the next decade. The extinct civilization known as the Architects left detailed warnings about parasitic entities called the Void Swarm that consume entire star systems on a 50,000-year cycle. Prime Minister Veltar of the hegemony species made a dismissive gesture with his tentacles. His race had been spacefaring for 3 million years and considered humans to be barely evolved primitives. The arrogance in his voice was clear as he interrupted Helen's presentation. The human species has been traveling between stars for only 2 centuries, Veltar said with obvious contempt. You could not possibly understand threats on a galactic scale. Your archaeological methods are crude, and your translations are unreliable. Helen felt her anger rising but forced herself to remain calm. She had expected this reaction from the older species who viewed humanity as children playing with toys they did not understand. She continued her presentation, showing the mathematical models and energy readings that supported the Architect warnings. The data is conclusive, Helen insisted. Our xenoarchaeologist Dr. Lisa Carter has verified the translations using multiple linguistic databases. The mathematical predictions show perfect correlation with historical galactic events, including the disappearance of the Forerunner civilization exactly 50,000 years ago. Counselor Miriam of the Synthesis Collective spoke next. Her species was known for their scientific advancement and logical thinking, but even she seemed skeptical of the human claims. Her metallic voice resonated through translation devices as she addressed the chamber. Our own scientists have conducted extensive surveys of the galactic rim and found no evidence of these so-called void swarm entities. The energy signatures you describe could be explained by natural phenomena or misinterpreted ancient technology. Humanity lacks the experience to properly analyze such complex data. Helen played more of the Architect recordings, showing the terrifying images of moon-sized creatures consuming planets and converting matter into copies of themselves. The holographic displays filled the chamber with scenes of destruction that should have alarmed any rational being. Instead, the council members seemed more annoyed than concerned. These images could be fictional warnings or religious mythology, declared Counselor Thane of the Eternal Assembly. Many primitive civilizations create elaborate stories about cosmic threats to explain natural disasters or their own extinction. Humans are known for dramatic interpretations of limited data. Helen looked around the chamber, desperately seeking any sign that her message was being taken seriously. Only one council member seemed to be listening with genuine attention. Keeper Jorvik of the Wanderer species sat quietly studying the holographic data with his ancient eyes. His people were explorers who had traveled the galaxy longer than any other race. The mathematical models are precise, Helen continued. According to the Architect calculations, the void swarm emergence points can be predicted with 97% accuracy. We have identified 17 sectors where dark energy signatures are already building toward critical levels. Prime Minister Veltar laughed with a sound like grinding metal. Humans have existed in space for barely 200 years and now claim to understand 50,000-year cycles. Your species discovered fire only 10,000 years ago while we were building stargates. Your warnings are the product of inexperience and paranoia. High Chancellor Zeth Kalar raised one of his hands for silence. The Council will now vote on whether to take action based on the human presentation. Those who believe the evidence warrants further investigation, raise your symbols. Helen watched in growing horror as only empty air filled the space above the Council platforms. Not a single member voted to investigate the threat further. Keeper Jorvik remained motionless, which counted as an abstention rather than support. The oldest and most experienced beings in the galaxy had decided that humanity's warnings were worthless. "The vote is unanimous," Zethkalar announced. "The Council finds no credible evidence of the threat described by the human delegation. Furthermore, we are concerned about the destabilizing effect of such unfounded alarmism on galactic peace and stability." Helen felt her heart sinking as she realized what was coming next. She had failed not just humanity, but every living being in the galaxy. The evidence was overwhelming, but prejudice and arrogance had blinded the Council to the approaching danger. Therefore, Zethkalar continued, the Council issues Decree 2847 effective immediately. The human species and all their colonies are hereby restricted from participating in galactic affairs. Earth and human space are declared off limits to Empire citizens. This isolation will continue until humanity demonstrates the maturity necessary for responsible galactic citizenship. The chamber erupted in alien voices as the other Council members expressed their approval of the decision. Helen stood alone. At the center of the room, holding data that could save billions of lives, while the most powerful beings in the galaxy dismissed her as a primitive child telling scary stories. "You are making a terrible mistake," Helen said quietly, but her words were lost in the noise of the dispersing Council. "When the swarm comes, you will remember this day and regret your arrogance." Keeper Jorvik approached her as the chamber emptied. His species had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, and his eyes held depths of knowledge that few beings could understand. He spoke in a whisper that only Helen could hear. "I believe your warnings, young human. My people have legends of the great darkness that comes from beyond the rim. But the Council will not listen until it is too late. Prepare your species for what is coming, because you will face it alone." President Maria Santos sat in the emergency session chamber deep beneath the United Earth Government headquarters. The holographic displays around her showed the grim reality of humanity's situation. Cut off from galactic trade routes and communication networks, they were truly alone in preparing for a threat that could destroy all life in the galaxy. Admiral Patricia Stone stood at the front of the room, presenting the classified files that Jake Morrison had brought back from Kepler 442b. The alien data had been analyzed by hundreds of scientists, and the conclusions were terrifying. Every calculation confirmed that the void swarm would emerge within 5 years, and humanity would face them without any support from the Galactic Empire. "The architect data is clear," Admiral Stone reported to the assembled leaders. "We have identified 17 emergence points where the swarm will enter our galaxy. Current dark energy readings show accelerating buildup at all locations. Our window for preparation is closing rapidly." Maria looked around the table at the faces of Earth's most important officials. General Paul Mitchell represented the military forces, while Dr. Kevin Rodriguez spoke for the scientific community. Director Carl Johnson controlled intelligence operations, and Commander Susan Torres managed deep space construction projects. These people would determine whether humanity survived or joined the countless extinct civilizations that had faced the swarm before them. "What are our options?" Maria asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Can we evacuate human colonies to safe areas of the galaxy?" General Mitchell shook his head grimly. "There are no safe areas, ma'am. The architect records show that the swarm spreads across the entire galaxy within months of emergence. Running will only delay the inevitable by weeks at most." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward with his tablet, displaying complex mathematical models. "We have been analyzing the architect weapon designs found in the database. Their technology was incredibly advanced, but they still lost the war against the swarm. However, we believe we can improve upon their methods using modern human engineering. Admiral Stone activated a new holographic display showing the outline of humanity's desperate plan. We are calling it Operation Darkwatch. The goal is not just to defend human space, but to protect the entire galaxy, whether they want our help or not. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. They would need to build weapons and defenses using technology that barely existed, while simultaneously preparing for a war against enemies that had destroyed civilizations millions of years older than Earth. The architect data includes blueprints for quantum disruptor arrays and dimensional shield generators, Dr. Rodriguez explained. These weapons can actually damage void swarm entities, unlike conventional energy weapons, which they simply absorb. However, the power requirements are enormous, and the construction materials are extremely rare. Commander Torres brought up images of the secret construction projects already underway throughout human space. We have begun building hidden defense platforms at key strategic locations. The work is being done in complete secrecy, using automated construction ships to avoid detection by Empire surveillance. Maria studied the construction schedules and resource allocation charts. Humanity was pouring every available credit and resource into weapons development while maintaining the appearance of normal civilian activity. The deception was necessary because Empire agents were already suspicious of human activities. Director Johnson, what is the status of Imperial surveillance? Maria asked. How long can we maintain operational security? Carl Johnson was a thin man with sharp eyes who had spent decades managing intelligence operations. The Empire has increased monitoring of human communications and ship movements. They believe we are developing weapons for conquest rather than defense. We have detected sabotage attempts at 3 different facilities. The irony was bitter. The Galactic Empire refused to believe warnings about the Void Swarm, but they were convinced that humanity was planning military expansion. Imperial agents worked actively to prevent the very preparations that might save their own worlds from destruction. General Mitchell presented the military training programs being implemented across all human colonies. We are converting civilian manufacturing to military production, while training every able-bodied person for combat operations. The architect data shows that defeating the swarm requires coordinated action across multiple star systems simultaneously. Admiral Stone showed reconnaissance reports from deep space monitoring stations. We have positioned long-range sensor arrays near the predicted emergence points. Admiral Morrison leads the Deep Space Patrol Fleet that will provide early warning when the swarm arrives. Jake Morrison had been promoted to Admiral after his discovery of the Architect Archive. He now commanded humanity's most advanced ships on dangerous missions to the Galactic Rim, where space itself was beginning to show signs of the approaching threat. The dark energy signatures are building exactly as the Architect models predicted. Admiral Stone continued. We estimate first emergence in 18 months, with full swarm activation within 4 years. Once they arrive, we will have perhaps weeks before they reach populated systems. Dr. Rodriguez displayed the weapon prototypes being tested in secret facilities throughout human space. The quantum disruptor technology is functional, but requires massive power generation. We are building fusion reactors specifically designed to charge the weapon arrays. Commander Torres explained the logistical challenges of preparing defenses for an entire galaxy. We need to position quantum disruptor platforms at every major population center and strategic location. The work must be completed before the swarm arrives or billions will die. Maria felt the weight of responsibility pressing down her shoulders. As president of the United Earth government, she was making decisions that would affect not just humanity, but every living being in the galaxy. The Empire had declared Earth off limits, but humanity was preparing to defend them anyway. What about the other younger species? Maria asked. Can we warn them without alerting Imperial authorities? Director Johnson consulted his intelligence. Reports. Several species have expressed private interest in our archaeological discoveries. The Altarians and Centauri Federation might be willing to listen, but any official contact would be considered a violation of Council Decree 2847. The meeting continued for hours as they refined the details of Operation Darkwatch. Humanity was betting everything on weapons technology that had never been tested in real combat against enemies that existed only in ancient records. Failure would mean not just human extinction, but the death of galactic civilization itself. We proceed with full implementation, Maria announced as the session concluded. Begin immediate construction of all quantum disruptor arrays and dimensional shield generators. Convert all available resources to military production and accelerate. Training programs. Admiral Stone saluted before adding one final thought. Ma'am, we should consider what happens after we defeat the swarm. The Galactic Empire will demand explanations for our military buildup and secret weapons development. Maria smiled grimly as she looked at the star charts showing human colonies, scattered across dozens of systems. If we survive this, Admiral, then the Empire will learn that humanity does not abandon allies even when those allies abandon us first. The first emergency signals reached Centralus Prime at exactly 0347 Galactic Standard Time. High Chancellor Zeth Kalar was awakened in his private chambers by the urgent chiming of his communication device. The message that appeared on his display made his ancient blood run cold with fear he had not felt in millennia. Emergency transmission from Hegemony Sector 7, the automated voice announced. All contact lost with primary worlds Veltanos and Kithera. Last transmission reports massive unknown entities emerging from dark space, requesting immediate military assistance. Zeth Kalar activated his personal communicator and began contacting the other council members. Within minutes, similar reports were flooding in from 17 different sectors across the galaxy. The pattern matched exactly what the human ambassador had predicted, but Zeth Kalar pushed that thought from his mind as he focused on the immediate crisis. Prime Minister Veltar appeared on the emergency communication channel from his flagship, somewhere in hegemony space. His usual arrogance was replaced by panic as he reported what his forces had encountered. Behind him, the bridge of his ship showed signs of battle damage and crew members working frantically at damaged stations. Chancellor, these entities are unlike anything we have faced before, Veltar said with fear in his voice. They emerged simultaneously from 17 different points beyond the galactic rim. Each entity is the size of a small moon, and they consume everything in their path, including planets, moons, and space stations. Tactical displays in the council chamber showed the locations where contact had been lost with major worlds. Zeth Kalar studied the patterns and realized with growing horror that the destruction was spreading in exactly the configuration human data had predicted. The void swarm was real, and it was destroying the galaxy just as the humans had warned. What is the status of our military response? Zeth Kalar demanded. Have our fleets engaged these entities successfully? Counselor Mirian joined the emergency session from her laboratory ship, where she had been analyzing the first combat reports. Her metallic features showed confusion and disbelief as she presented her findings to the assembled leaders. Our conventional weapons have no effect on these creatures, Mirian reported. Energy beams are absorbed completely, while kinetic projectiles pass through them without causing damage. They appear to exist partially outside normal spacetime, which makes them immune to most forms of attack. The holographic displays showed footage from the first battles between Imperial forces and the Void Swarm entities. The massive creatures moved through space like living ships, converting matter into copies of themselves. Planets that had existed for billions of years were consumed in hours, leaving only empty space where thriving worlds had once orbited their stars. Casualty reports are coming in from all sectors, announced General Korth of the Imperial Defense Force. We have lost 3 entire battle fleets and over 200 million civilians in the first wave alone. The entities are spreading faster than our ships can respond. Zeth Kalar felt the weight of leadership crushing down on him as he realized the magnitude of the threat facing galactic civilization. The Empire had existed for millions of years, but it might not survive the next few weeks. He thought again of the human warnings and felt a bitter taste of regret mixed with his fear. What about evacuation procedures? Zethkalar asked. Can we move populations away from the advancing entities? Counselor Thane reported from the Eternal Assembly homeworld, where massive evacuation ships were already departing for safer regions. The entities move faster than our fastest ship's chancellor. Evacuation is only delaying the inevitable by days or weeks at most. The emergency session continued as more reports arrived from across the galaxy. The void swarm was consuming star systems with terrifying efficiency, while Imperial forces proved completely helpless against them. Ancient civilizations that had survived for millions of years were falling silent one by one. We need to contact Earth immediately, declared Keeper Jorvac, who had remained silent during most of the crisis discussions. The humans warned us about this threat, and we dismissed them. Perhaps they have developed countermeasures that our forces lack. Prime Minister Veltar protested even as his own worlds burned around him. We cannot show weakness by begging help from a primitive species that has barely learned to travel between stars. The Empire has faced threats before and survived without outside assistance. Zethkalar silenced the argument with a gesture. Pride will not save us from extinction, Veltar. If the humans have knowledge that can help us, then we must swallow our arrogance and ask for their aid. The emergency communication to Earth was sent on all available channels. Zethkalar personally recorded the message, acknowledging that the Council had been wrong to dismiss human warnings. He formally apologized for the Empire's arrogance and requested immediate assistance against the Void Swarm threat. The response from Earth arrived within hours, and its contents shocked the entire Council. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the Yad communication screen wearing the uniform of the human space fleet. His expression was cold and professional as he delivered humanity's answer to the Empire's plea for help. High Chancellor, we received your request for assistance against the entities you are facing, Morrison said without emotion. However, Council Decree 2847 clearly states that Earth and human space are off limits to all Empire citizens. We are simply respecting your decision to isolate humanity from galactic affairs. Zethkalar felt his heart sink as he realized what the humans were doing. They were using the Empire's own decree to justify refusing aid just as the galaxy faced its darkest hour. The bitter irony was not lost on any of the council members who had voted for human isolation. Surely you cannot mean to abandon the galaxy in its hour of need, Zethkalar pleaded. Billions of innocent lives hang in the balance. Morrison's expression remained unchanged. The Galactic Empire Council determined that humanity was too primitive and inexperienced to participate in galactic affairs. We are merely accepting your judgment and staying within our designated boundaries. The communication ended, leaving the Council in stunned silence. Reports continued arriving showing the Void Swarm spreading across more sectors, while Imperial forces remained helpless to stop them. The ancient empire that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years was dying, and the one species that might save them had been driven away by their own prejudice and arrogance. Strange rumors began reaching the Council about human ships successfully defending their territory against Void Swarm attacks. Intercepted communications spoke of weapons that could actually damage the entities and force them to retreat. The primitive humans that the Empire had dismissed were somehow holding their ground while advanced civilizations fell like dominoes. Refugee ships began appearing at the borders of human space, carrying survivors from destroyed worlds. These ships were turned away by human patrol vessels, displaying automated messages that repeated the same phrase over and over. By Council Decree 2847. This space is off limits to all Galactic Empire citizens. Commander Susan Torres stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the Wolf 359 system prepare for battle. The quantum disruptor arrays that humanity had built in secret were now fully operational and positioned throughout human space. Today would prove whether 5 years of desperate preparation could save not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The Void Swarm entities approached the system like living nightmares, each one the size of a small moon. Their dark surfaces pulsed with energy that seemed to bend space around them as they consumed everything in their path. Behind Torres, her crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency, despite facing an enemy that had destroyed civilizations millions of years older than Earth. All disruptor arrays report ready for firing, announced Lieutenant Commander Dan Phillips from the weapons station. Power levels at maximum and targeting systems locked onto the lead entities. Torres had served under Admiral Stone for 12 years and had helped design the defense systems now protecting human worlds. She understood better than anyone how desperate their situation truly was. The quantum disruptors were untested in real combat and based on technology from an extinct civilization that had ultimately failed against the same enemy. Fire when ready, Torres ordered as the first Void Swarm entity entered weapons range. Target the largest one and concentrate all arrays on a single point. The quantum disruptor beams lanced out from hidden platforms throughout the system. Unlike conventional energy weapons, these beams seemed to tear holes in space itself as they struck the approaching entity. For the first time since the swarm had emerged, something actually damaged them. A massive creature writhed in apparent pain as sections of its dark hull began dissolving under the quantum bombardment. Strange sounds echoed through space as if the entity was screaming in frequencies that normal matter could barely detect. More importantly, it stopped advancing and began trying to retreat from the effective range of the human weapons. Direct hit confirmed, Phillips reported with excitement in his voice. The entity is showing structural damage and attempting to withdraw from the system. Torres watched as her weapons continued tearing pieces from the Void Swarm creature. The other entities in the attack formation also began retreating as they recognized the threat posed by humanity's secret weapons. For the first time since the galactic invasion began, the swarm was being forced to give ground. The battle was broadcast on emergency frequencies throughout the galaxy as proof that the Void Swarm could be defeated. Imperial forces that had been retreating in panic suddenly had hope that their ancient enemy was not invincible after all. The primitive humans that the Empire had dismissed were demonstrating superior technology and tactics. Keeper Jorvik arrived at Earth aboard a damaged refugee ship carrying thousands of survivors from destroyed worlds. His ancient vessel barely made it through the Sol system defenses before losing power completely. President Maria Santos met him personally at the lunar docking facility to hear what the eldest council member had to say. "Your people have accomplished what mine thought impossible," Jorvik said as he stood in the observation lounge looking out. At Earth, the Void Swarm has never been forced to retreat before. How did humanity develop such effective weapons in only 5 years? Maria gestured toward the holographic displays, showing the battle at Wolf 359, where Commander Torres was still engaged with retreating swarm entities. "We listened to the warnings that your council ignored. While the Empire dismissed our evidence, we spent every resource preparing for this day." Dr. Lisa Carter joined the meeting carrying the complete architect database that had started humanity's desperate preparations. Her translation work had uncovered not just warnings about the swarm, but detailed instructions for galaxy-wide defense systems that could drive them back into dark space permanently. The architects left more than just warnings, Lisa explained. To Jorvik, they designed a comprehensive defense network that requires activation from multiple points across the galaxy simultaneously. The system was never completed because the architects ran out of time before the last swarm emergence. Admiral Patricia Stone presented the scope of humanity's secret preparations to the shocked alien leader. We have been building quantum disruptor platforms and dimensional shield generators at key locations throughout the galaxy for 5 years. The work was done in complete secrecy to avoid interference from Imperial forces. Jorvik studied the deployment. Maps showing hundreds of hidden installations scattered across dozens of sectors. You built defenses not just for human worlds, but for the entire galaxy, including those who rejected your warnings. Maria nodded as she activated displays showing the current tactical situation. The Galactic Empire Council must formally dissolve and transfer authority to a new federation with Earth as the coordinating world. This is not conquest, but necessity. Someone must have the authority to activate the defense network before more worlds are lost. The ultimatum was broadcast to the surviving council members, who were scattered across the galaxy in refugee fleets and emergency bunkers. High Chancellor Zeth Kalar responded from his command ship, where he was coordinating the evacuation of Centralis Prime as Void Swarm entities approached the Imperial capital. The Council accepts your terms, Zeth Kalar announced with defeat and humility in his ancient voice. The Galactic Empire hereby dissolves and transfers all authority to the new Galactic Federation under Earth leadership. We have no choice but to trust in human wisdom, since our own has failed so completely. President Santus was sworn in as the first Prime Minister of the Galactic Federation in a ceremony broadcast throughout the galaxy. Her first official act was to authorize Operation Starwall, the coordinated activation of the Architect Defense Network that humanity had spent 5 years building and preparing. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison coordinated the massive operation from his command ship positioned at the Galactic Rim. Human-led coalition forces moved to every activation point simultaneously, while quantum disruptor arrays provided cover against swarm counterattacks. The timing had to be perfect, or the defense network would fail and the galaxy would be lost. All stations report ready for network activation, Morrison announced to the combined fleet commanders. Remember that we get only one chance at this. If we fail, there will be no second opportunity. The Architect Defense Network came online across the entire galaxy in a coordinated wave of energy that had not been seen for 50,000 years. Ancient installations buried on dozens of worlds activated simultaneously, creating a barrier of dimensional force that began pushing the void swarm back toward the galactic rim. The creatures that had seemed unstoppable just days before found themselves unable to advance against the combined human and architect technology. One by one, the massive entities were forced back into the dark space between galaxies, where they would remain dormant for another 50,000 years. The galaxy was saved, but at a terrible cost. Billions had died on worlds that the Empire had failed to protect. The memorial wall constructed on Luna listed every destroyed civilization as a permanent reminder of the price of ignoring wisdom regardless of its source. The new Galactic Federation established its capital on the moon with representatives from every surviving species. The humans who had been dismissed as primitive children now led a galaxy united not by conquest, but by shared survival and the bitter lesson that arrogance, in the face of truth, could cost everything.